Well, good morning once again. It's nice to see you guys again. And this is actually, interestingly enough, Friday the 13th of September 2019. I have actually always found Friday the 13th to be kind of a lucky day. So this feels like a good day to do this. Part 2. Spoiler alert, I believe is what I call this particular theme. I did part 1 last week. And as I'm doing a couple of time predictions, I just wanted to let you know this is mid-September 2019 that I am doing this video. And last week did the first one. So where were we? Well, let me just start. I'm going to make just a few general predictions of what I expect, which is what these videos are about. And then I just want to go into the real gist, excuse me, of what I'm trying to say. Because I am bringing a message about the future, and one that, can be a little scary. But it is not my intent to scare anyone. And I just want to make the point, there is nothing to fear. Okay, there is nothing to fear at any time. Excuse me, I've got a little frog in my throat. In any way, because the nature of our being is spiritual and it is eternal, right? And as we tune into that, even while we are here in a physical body association, we nonetheless get all the help we need, the protection we need, no matter what sort of circumstances our lives are, that characterize our lives individually or even our lives as a society. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I just can't seem to get that throat clear. So let me just make that point, that there is nothing to fear, and my purpose in making these last 2 videos, this one and last week's, and my purpose in talking about the future is to, it's kind of like a heads up. It's kind of like a call to maybe prepare yourself, get ready. And it is also a call or a request that for those of you who are living a spiritual life or wanting to live a spiritual life, it's what I'm talking about on this video, as well as all other videos that I have done, is that we have a responsibility not only to our family, our friends, our immediate environment, but we have a responsibility for the whole, for everybody. And that the best way we can fulfill that responsibility is to be conscious, present, self-aware, and to be operating as much as we can from a state of consciousness characterized by love and kindness and helpfulness. Okay, I'm going to grab a sip of water here. Can't seem to get that out of my throat. So again, there's nothing to fear, and life is what it is. And as spiritual practitioners, we learn to just go with it, go with the flow, and we learn to depend upon that which is highest in us and in everyone else. So that's, just want to make that clear. Because what I'm talking about is something that I have thought about, something I have expected, I've had visions about for many years, but I have never felt any fear around it, which is why I can talk about it and have been guided to talk about it. Because, as I said, there's no reason to fear. And I will get into a little of that later. But first, let me see. Yeah, first I'm just going to make a few general predictions. And we'll find out in the future how accurate I am. I said last week that I expect big changes to be occurring, to be starting in our society, and thus affecting our lives within the next year or two. So that would be by 2020, 2021. And it may be longer than that. The hardest part to get accurate when you make predictions about the future is the time frame, because things are so flexible and things move at their own pace, and there are always unexpected changes and movements and trends. And let me say right now, nobody really knows how the future is going to turn out, where things are going to go. I mean, none of us do. All I'm trying to do is sort of chart or present a reasonable picture of how I think things are going to look and things are going to change. Now, it does seem apparent. Again, just looking at the movement of history, just looking at human life, your life, right? Everybody else's life, the movement of our collective life as a society, the change is inevitable in this world, isn't it? There is nothing static about life within this time frame continuum. Things are always changing. And that includes our present society. And we have seen amazing changes in the last 10, 20 years with the digital revolution and just the last century, just the way technology has changed. And the pace of everything, the pace of change is picking up. So let me throw a few predictions out there. All right, I'm just going to keep them real general. First of all, economically, our economic system is going to have to change. And it's probably no surprise to most people that we are nearing the end of what we call an economic cycle of growth, and we are nearing a recession. So there is that period coming, which is a little uncomfortable often for many. And I believe this one is going to go a lot deeper and a lot farther. That's all I'm going to say. But I think economically we are going to be pretty strongly impacted in the next couple of years. And then let's just talk about the general pace of life, way of life. I think that is going to change. There's going to be changes in how we live. I think the so-called technological revolution will slow down because the pace of change is just getting too fast, and it's at the point where things are being invented not because we really need them, but just because somebody can do it and can make money with it. So that will have to slow down as well. But that is not serving the cause of human good. And then there's the international scene. There is tremendous tension. As you know, there's a lot of conflict, et cetera, et cetera. There's just going to be big changes all the way across the arena of human life. And what that looks like, again, I have some ideas about it, but nobody really knows. So let me just say there are going to be general and probably deep changes coming, and it's best to be ready. Now, I do not make, in the past I have not made real specific, what you'd call practical suggestions to people. I want to leave that to everybody else, but there is one in particular that I have been making for a number of years, and that is, I think in the coming years, living in a big city is not the best idea. Smaller cities, smaller towns in the country, I think life is just going to be more pleasant and probably more fun living on a smaller scale. That's the one kind of consistent prediction I have been making for a while. And that's the only practical one. Okay. And yet spiritually, there's another very practical suggestion I want to make. Now, those of you that are already on a spiritual path will probably be very familiar with this. Those of you who are not, let me go into it a little bit. But there is this thing we call spiritual guidance. I'm just going to move my shoulders a little bit here. There is this thing we call spiritual guidance. It's a principle, you could say. Those of us that work with A Course in Miracles, and of course in the Christian tradition, it's called the Holy Spirit. Other traditions may have different words for it. I also call it the guidance principle or the guru principle. But what I mean is, in your higher mind, your spiritual mind, referred to as the Christ mind or the Buddha mind, there is a principle, there is a part of that mind that is connected to the mind that is in association with, identified with a body, the human mind. And the purpose of that principle, of that provision, shall we say, is not only to help you connect with the truth of what you are, but it's also to give you guidance even in practical matters, to guide you in your life, to make the decisions that are in your highest interest and everybody else's highest interest that may be affected by it. So I strongly recommend, and have been doing this for many years, for everybody, whether you're a spiritual practitioner or not, this is a real good time. Every time is a good time, but this is a real good time to try and get in touch with that inner guidance, also called inner guidance. I use the term spiritual guidance because it is there in every mind. It's there in your higher mind as a potential. It is waiting for you to let it be activated in your life. Now, I think just about everybody, even people that don't believe in it, have probably had little experiences of this, kind of an intuition sometime, or feeling about what was the right course of action. Now, that's probably a prompt. That's probably a download or a message from that higher mind. So the potential and the ability to tap into that is available for everybody. But you must want it, and you must set your intent, and you must listen. And general spiritual practices such as prayer, meditation, mindfulness are very helpful to open that channel. But I think I can't strongly recommend enough how important it is for everyone. Actually, in any time of life and in any era of human existence, to try and get in touch with that spiritual guidance, because it's so helpful, it's so healing. And particularly when you're going through times, whether it's in your life or on a bigger scale, like I'm talking about, things are changing, things can be a little scary. It's real important, real helpful to have that. It makes just a world of difference. So that's, again, a more specific prediction I want to make regarding, or recommendation is a better word, regarding something you can do to prepare. And as far as the rest of it, again, everybody has to make their own decisions, and everybody makes those decisions based on what you think is best for you, your family, your friends, and that is good. And I just suggest, again, from the spiritual perspective, to remember that the entire human race is our family. And remember that we want our decisions and how we treat each other and just our general frame of mind to be in a way, to be in a sort of, let's say, alignment with what is the highest good for everyone. Okay, and I've talked a fair bit about that in the past. And probably the gist of my message here about the future and the message I hope to bring to people who want to think about the future. Again, it's almost an axe I've been grinding for a while, but the gist of the message is that each of us is responsible for the whole. We're a part of it. I am my brother's keeper, as it says in the Bible. And that, especially in the future, in times of great change and trauma, it's real important for as many of us as possible to try and keep in mind and keep in touch with that which is highest in us, and be always operating. Try to operate from that sense of integrity and responsibility, as we are responsible for each other, we are responsible for all of life and for the planet. And of course, there's one word that pretty well describes this state of mind, and that is love. So if as many of us as possible can attune ourselves to that state of love, and kindness, and helpfulness, excuse me, and live from that place, and let that state of consciousness, let that feeling pervade and guide our words and our thoughts and our actions and our energetic vibration. All the time, ideally, or at least as much as possible, and in all of our relationships and interactions. If you can do that, if I can do that, any of us can do that, we are actually offering the optimum sort of help that we can offer to everybody around us, and just to our society, to the human race as a whole. And if in addition to that, acting locally, if you're an activist or want to be an activist, you want to work for good causes that support human good, that support life, that's very good as well, whatever you feel guided and moved to do. And these are all ways of taking responsibility and working to help everyone. But remember, at the bottom of no matter what you do, at the very root of that, the root of that motivation, there needs to be love. And there needs to be a kindness and also forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big part of love. I know it's easy. We get involved in certain activist movements. We might be working for some cause or another. We run up against opposition. That is the nature of life here. It can be easy to start falling into this frame of mind, sort of us versus them, good guys, bad guys. And we don't want to do that, because that kind of fundamental movement in human life has a lot to do with the conflict between human beings on all levels. We want to always remember, my brother, my sister, they are also God's children. Wherever they are, whatever they're doing, whether I agree with it or not. And remember, God loves all of His children, His whole creation, equally. And that is without exception. And so God wants us, our Creator wants us, and that which is highest in us wants us also to live in that state of love and kindness, and thus forgiveness, tolerance, non-judgment towards everyone. And if you can live in that state of consciousness, let's say, with that attitude, as much as possible, you will be a light shining in the darkness of human life, human conflict, human misunderstanding, fear and hatred. All those circumstances, conditions, movements of energy and emotions that affect our life and that are just swirling around in kind of a huge kind of cooking pot right now is what it feels like to me. So remember that each of us can be a light that shines in the darkness and helps light the way for others, and that every one of our brothers is just as worthy as we are, fundamentally, right, a spiritual being, no matter what, how they may be expressing presently, and that everyone will ultimately return to the awareness of the truth of what they are. Everyone will ultimately return to that spiritual dimension, that universe of light. I mean, that is, you'd say fundamentally, all the spiritual paths and perspectives recognize this is a commonality across nations for thousands of years, peoples, races, religions, that there is a purpose and a meaning to life, and it is to awaken to the truth of what we are. And as we awaken, eventually we reach that point where we no longer need to be experiencing physical life. We no longer need to be doing that. And we can start, I'll use the term, ascending that ladder that goes all the way back up to infinity, to perfection, to our eternal nature, where we resume our life of being channels of creation through which God pours love and that creative energy, and we become, in that sense, we return to that original function of being co-creators with God. God created us in order to extend himself, and as God has given us everything that he is, we then, in our position, in our true nature, as oneness with the Creator, will then become part of that never-ending, eternal, creative expression and dance of love and infinite peace. And I think on that happy note, I think I'm going to sign off. I had no idea what I'd be saying today, but I feel like I've said enough. So thank you all for joining me. God bless you. I hope you're having a good life. God bless us all. And this will be the last video I'm going to make for a while. And so, yeah, keep the faith. Do your best. Remember to love and forgive. And perhaps we'll see each other again. Bye-bye.